Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. Thank you for joining me today. And we have news. There is a new fusion champion. Even though it's launching in August, at the very end of August, I'm going to call it the September Fusion. It is launching in just 2 days here, which would be, for us, it would be the 31st of August. But again, basically the entirety of the fusion event is going to be happening in September. So we're going to call him the September Fusion. Now his name is Strategos Islin. Let me just take myself out of the way here so you can see him. And this is the artwork. A little bit more subtle, a little bit more muted than some of the champions we've seen several months ago. It seemed like the character models were getting flashier and flashier. I kind of like the more subtle vibe. Put some effort into the character model design and don't worry about so many, shiny objects, I guess. So he does have a little bit of a glow on his sword. But I like the armor, I like the helmet, I like the wings on his shoulder. I like the little cloth wraps that are kind of tied around, giving him a little bit of a cultural feel there in terms of, obviously he's a high elf. So yeah, very cool look. I think I like it. I think I like it. Now we'll have to wait and see what he looks like in game, obviously. But based on the artwork, I think he's going to be a pretty cool looking character. Can't wait to see his animations and see what he actually does. Okay, so I have not reviewed this kit yet. I read through it very briefly in preparation for this video. It's the first time I've seen it. Remember, I am a free-to-play player, and that's how I'm going to be reviewing or previewing this champion. So I always look at, fusion champions with that in mind. What's this fusion going to mean to free-to-play players? And also, early free-to-play players, mid-game free-to-play players, and late-game free-to-play players. So yeah, we're going to take a look at it with that in mind. So why don't we just dive into the kit and I will give you my impression right now. Okay, so the A1 is called Double Slash and it attacks one enemy 2 times. I always love a double hitter on the A1. Each hit has a 35% chance. Looks like it books to a 50% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. When counterattacking, the chance increases to 50%. Obviously, that's 65% with the book. So when this is booked, if it's an attack, you're going to land a provoke 75% of the times because it's each hit has a 50% chance of a provoke debuff. That's very strong. A 75% chance provoke is really nice on an A1. When counterattacking, the chance increases to 65%. And again, this is going to be 2 hits. So that's going to get you close to, that's almost 90%, I think. Yeah, so that's almost 88% chance of landing a provoke when you counterattack. So that seems like a very strong A1. That's a really nice ability, and it does seem like a legendary ability. Obviously, you have to account for the fact that he's magic affinity, so that means he can weak hit, and that would negate the provokes there. But that's a really high chance of a provoke on the A1. Okay, the A2 is called Hindrance on a 4-turn cooldown, but it books down to 3. This is an AoE. Attacks all enemies. Before attacking, has a 100% chance when booked of decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. This is kind of like Arbiter's skill, right? Arbiter's A2, I believe it is, has the ability to decrease the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. I don't think hers is 100%. I'm not 100% sure that hers is on 100%, but it could be. But so this is pretty good. It's not as good as a buff strip, just a pure removal. But a lot of enemy buffs, don't necessarily go up for 2 turns or 3 turns, or depending on when you're using it in this rotation. But it's going to decrease the value of those buffs. So that's nice. It's not overwhelming. I don't know what the damage is going to be like on this. He is a defensive-based champion. So if it hits pretty hard, then this extra, bonus of removing or decreasing the duration of enemy buffs, you could just think of it that way. It's just a bonus. He hits hard. And this thing also happens. It also has a 100% chance of placing a 30% decrease speed debuff for 2 turns. And this, like I said, books down to a 3-turn cooldown. So forget about the decreased duration for a second. If we just said attacks all enemies and has a 100% chance of placing a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns, that's a pretty solid ability. Obviously, there are epics who have that ability, so it doesn't feel quite legendary unless it hits really hard. So we'll have to see about the damage here. But you throw in this little extra ability to decrease the duration of enemy buffs. That's a little bit of an extra bonus. And then if it hits pretty hard, it's going to feel legendary. So we'll have to see what happens when he comes out. Right now, I'm not super excited for this skill. but I'm definitely hopeful for this skill. It could be a very, very strong hit, which would make it really, a good all-around legendary skill. All right, let's go to Flawless Stratagem. This is on a 6-turn cooldown, but books down to 4. Places a 50% ally protection buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. And places an increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. That includes himself. Also places a counterattack buff on this champion for 2 turns. Then places a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's defense. Okay, so this skill is obviously going to be the make or break. I say obviously. I think this skill is going to be the make or break skill for Strategos Islin. Everything's on a 2-turn duration and a 4-turn cooldown. Now, it's a bunch of really good abilities all together. Ally protection, increased defense for him. That means he'll take less damage from the ally protect hits. He's got a counterattack. The counterattack obviously gives him that extra chance to provoke on his A1. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's defense. That's really nice. That means you can get a really big defensive shield. And the more defense you put on him, the bigger the shield, but also the harder he hits. So it's really good synergy. But being on a 4-turn cooldown makes him tough to bring into clan boss. You would have to have a buff extender and a cooldown reduction champion with Strategos Islin to really make this work. Now, if you had that, if you could get that comp going and speed tune it, then potentially you've got ally protect and increased defense on the same ability, and obviously you also have the counterattack. The provoke won't matter on the A1, but additional hits could proc, Giant Slayer or War Master procs, probably War Master procs. So counterattacks in clan boss can be powerful. So yeah, I'm not totally in love with the skill. It looks really powerful, and then you look at that cooldown and you're like, this could be a little tricky. However, outside of clan boss, I think this is a very powerful skill. This is going to be good in wave content. This is going to be good anywhere that a boss can be provoked. So potentially in Hydra clan boss, also in the Magma Dragon. It could also be good in just general wave content where provokes play. Obviously in faction crypts, it's going to be great. So yeah, so this is an interesting skill. Might be tricky to use. Okay, the passive is Protect the Troops. Whenever this champion is attacked, heals themselves by 1% for each 500 defense this champion has. That's kind of crazy. Heals all other allies under ally protection buffs placed by this champion by 30% of this skill's initial heal. This is a great passive. This is actually an amazing passive. This is a crazy strong passive. Right? So first of all, just take the first part of the passive. When this champion is attacked, heals themselves by 1% for each 500 defense this champion has. If you're a late game player, even if you're an early game player, you can probably get 4K defense on it. Right? So not super early, but if you're like mid game player, you can get 4K defense on him. Put all your best defensive gear on him. Obviously, you're going to want some accuracy. So it's probably going to be a mix of perception gear and defense gear, or maybe resilience gear and accuracy gear, or some combination of that. But wait a second. No, forget that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm throwing that out. That's okay. You could do that. But better yet, put him in a regeneration set. If you can get enough accuracy on him in a regeneration set with an immortal set, and then you have this, that would be insane. He would never die. He would forget all of his other skills. This guy's going to be able to solo the world. Whenever this champion attacks, heals themselves by 1% of 500 for each 500 defense they have. If you can get them up to say 6K defense or 7K defense, they're like my Valkyrie has about 6,000 defense on her. So if I could swap that over and get, she's not in regeneration gear. So if I could get regeneration gear and get him with 6,000 defense, that's 12% every time he's attacked. That means every spiderling that attacks him, he gets 12% heal. That means every time a boss attacks him, 5% or 12% heal. That means when a Bommel's bomb goes off, 12% heal. There's no cooldown on this passive. This is insanity. Every single attack heals him by, 1% for each 500 defense. So somewhere between, say 7% and 12 or 13, maybe 14% for some people who have a lot of defense in their regen set. You're talking about, let's just call it 10%. 10% every single time you're attacked. If you build him tanky enough with that much defense, how many attacks are actually going to take off 10% of his health? And then he heals everybody else who's under ally protection buffs by 30% of that. So if he's getting 10% heal, they're getting 3% heal. And remember, he's provoking all of these champions. So he's going to be taking, preferably solo hits, right? Single target hits, not AoE hits. But even if they're taking AoE hits, he's got them under ally protect plus an increased defense. And now he's healing them and he's healing himself. Now you put him in regen and immortal, and he's going to get 13% heal at the end of that, like every turn with that. So I think he's an amazing tank just for this. He's an amazing tank just for this ability. And this could make him a solo god. Imagine regen immortal and this passive with no allies. Like just no allies. You can turn off his A3 if you want. The increased defense is probably nice. The counterattack is probably nice. You probably wouldn't turn it off, but you could, right? You get the decreased speed out there. You get the provoke out there. You just, every time you get hit, you healed. Every time you take a turn, you heal. You just keep it. Or maybe you don't even, it might even be that he's defensive enough and healy enough that you don't need regeneration on him, and you can put him in a toxic set. You put him in a toxic set to get poisons out there, speed up his solo. He's going to be soloing the world. This is crazy. Increases ally accuracy in all battles by 60%. So if you are soloing with him, you put him in the lead. He's got accuracy for his provoke, accuracy for his decreased speed, right? Like he's going to land his debuffs. This is a crazy kid. So forget Flawless Stratagem for a second. Like Flawless Stratagem is going to play because 2 out of 4 turns it's going to be up, and he's going to be healing your team. The rest of, like he can reduce that duration of enemy buffs. He can decrease speed. He can provoke the bot. Like this guy is going to be so, this is kind of a crazy kid. This is why Flawless Stratagem isn't on a 3-turn cooldown. Because if it was, and he had that ally protect up for 2 turns out of every 3 turns, and you could like get a buff extender, just 1 buff extender, it would be up 100% of the time. Nobody on the team would ever die. He would be a 1-man tank and healer in one. That's why that's on a 4-turn cooldown, because they literally couldn't give you a 3-turn cooldown. So if you can, in fact, get a cooldown reduction champion and a buff extender and get this so it's going like it had a 3-turn cooldown and it's up for 3 turns, and you can keep it up 100% of the time, you're going to keep every team. The only thing that this guy's missing is a strengthen. You bring another champion with a strengthen buff, and it's like your whole team is alive forever. Okay, so I'm impressed. I'm impressed. And I'm thinking that I may go after this champion. We'll have to see the actual stats. We'll have to see his base stats. We'll have to see his multipliers. Because if his damage is really low, soloing becomes tedious. But if his base defense is really high, like if he has 1500 base defense or higher, this is going to be insane. My guess is they're going to have to give him like 1350 base defense or something, because if they give him too much, it's just going to be overwhelming. I could see them putting this guy out. The community is probably not super excited about him. And then a few people get him and start experimenting with him, and he's just OP, and they have to nerf him. I could see that happening with this guy. Maybe what they'll do is they'll change protect the troops to 1% for every 1,000 defense. And then maybe they'll change like the heal for everybody else to like 20% or something. And then they'll drop Flawless Stratagem down to a 3-turn cooldown, right? Like, that would be kind of interesting. Less heals, a little bit less survivability, but easier to speed tune. I don't know. Maybe even that would be OP. Okay, so who's this going to be good for? Well, anybody who needs a tank. Anybody who needs a tank to get through wave content. Anybody who needs a tank for bosses in Doom Tower. Probably this would be good for your Hydra clan boss team. Yeah, you're only going to have 50% uptime on Flawless Stratagem. But if you're going faster than the Hydra heads are, you know, obviously if you got turn meter fill and stuff like that, it's going to be up more than 50% of the time when you actually get hit. So I think he's good. I think he's good for a lot of places. I would definitely think Doom Tower. I would definitely think, oh man, he's going to be a nightmare in Arena. He's going to be part of a go second team. And he's just going to be a nightmare in Arena. People are going to build him with counterattack. You know, they're going to go down the defensive tree, build him with counterattack masteries. They're going to build him with counterattack accessories. He's going to just get hit and get a provoke out there over and over again. He's going to be so hard to kill because every time he gets hit, he heals himself. He's going to be so hard to kill in Arena. This guy is about to be a giant pain in the butt for a lot of people. So what would I recommend? Okay, let's get to that because I'm sorry, I go on and on. Sometimes I get into these kits and I'm like, this is crazy. And at first it doesn't seem so. But then you look at this and I think people are probably going to underestimate this champion. They're going to be like, he looks cool, but not great. That's what I think people are going to say. He's good, but not great. You could skip this fusion. That's what you're going to hear. You could skip this fusion. I don't think I'm skipping this fusion. I want to skip this fusion. I've done the last 2 in a row, and I typically don't do 2 in a row, and now I have to do 3 in a row. But I think I want this fusion. I don't even know that I need him that much. But man, Iron Twins? He's got options for Iron Twins. He could do some good work for you there. Yeah, I bet he could help you in a lot of places. So I would say this is probably not as strong a champion as, say, Newt, right? We had a couple of really good fusions in a row. We had Emic Trunkheart. Emic Trunkheart is a great tank. This guy is also a great tank. They do the job differently, but if you had Emic Trunkheart and you needed to skip this fusion, I think that would be okay. Because Emic is like, build him out, build him up. He's going to do a lot of what this guy does in a lot of the same places. They do it differently. And I do think this guy has value that Emic doesn't have, and Emic has value that this guy doesn't have. But if you got Emic and you don't need another tank, or you haven't saved the resources, I don't think you need to feel too bad about skipping on this guy. If you didn't get Emic, maybe you were saving up because you got Newt and you couldn't get Emic back to back, I would probably go in on this guy. Now, we don't know what, October's fusion is going to look like. So we could be doing 4 in a row. But I would say, consider this. If you are an early game player and this is going to be a nightmare for you to get, then maybe don't do it. But if you're an early to mid game player, maybe a mid game player, and this could be your first fusion, it's a good first fusion. This is a great progression champion who's going to help you. He's going to be a solution for a lot of different things. He's going to be a solution for Magma Dragon, so that's going to be easy for you. He's going to be helpful in Hydra. He's going to be helpful in any wave content. He's going to help you in the Doom Tower waves, so that's often a problem people have on early game accounts or mid game accounts. He's going to help you in dungeons. He's going to help you in every dungeon. He's got a 2-hitter on his A1. You can bring him into Fire Knight, get that decreased speed out there on the Fire Knight, get the counterattack up so that if the Fire Knight does go off, you get that counterattack, you get another double hit there. The provoke doesn't work, but the shields will keep you alive. The heals will keep you alive. So if you don't have, a lot of turn meter reduction, he's going to help you in Fire Knight. He's going to help you get through the waves. He's going to be a solo god for Minotaur, right? Like, you get him leveled up, and he's not going to be fast, but you can just use him. You can use him as, you can use him as anything. You can use him as he's probably going to be able to campaign farm Nightmare. Slowly, but he's going to be able to do it. So I would say anybody who has the resources, regardless of where you are, unless you're really, really endgame and you just want to break from doing fusions, I'd say go after this guy. Take a shot. Okay, that is it for me and Strategos Islin. Thanks so much for hanging out. Let me know if you think that he is going to be as good as I think he is going to be. Are you going to go for this fusion? Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Also consider subscribing. We did just hit our 1,000 subscriber mark today. So thanks to all of the subscribers for helping us out and helping us hit that benchmark. It's been a fantastic ride. I just put a shorts video out. It's going to be out today or maybe even yesterday when this video drops. So go and check out that shorts video. We're going to be taking questions, basically an ask me anything kind of situation. I'll be putting out a video in celebration of our first 1,000 subscribers. We'll be doing that in a couple of days. So if you're interested in that, go check that out as well. Okay, that is all. Thanks so much. I've been ColeRed. I will see you in another video very soon.